jobs and businesses around the world. What is the current state of the U.S. economy and the aviation industry? Let's find out from CNN International Business Correspondent Richard Quest. He joins us now live from New York. Richard, great to have you with us on The Final Word. We saw the jobs numbers better than expected. Could this be basically the bottom of the U.S. economy the month of May, and we could start seeing a turnaround?
If you're talking, Rico, first of all, thank you. A very good evening on The Final Word. I think we're far from the final word in terms of the US economy. But if you're talking about the jobs number and how that is affected, then yes, we probably have seen the bottom then. What's happened, of course, is that the US economy has started to reopen. And as it's reopened, people have been taken back onto work again. Now, we expected this. It's very, very encouraging that it's happened faster than perhaps we'd hoped or thought, sorry, we feared, but it has now started to come back, and those numbers will be extremely welcome. However, remember, Rico, this is always a story of on the one hand versus the other hand. If you look at the number of people who are now claiming to be continuously unemployed for several months, there it's a much more serious situation. There the number is not as good. And what this is telling me, Rico, is that people are being re-employed, but many of the jobs will not come back. And that we will see a fall in unemployment, maybe to 8 or 9%, but then that will be a hardened number.
But still, this will impact the U.S. economy going forward. But of course, in the near term, with these jobs numbers, the markets are cheering them today. Not only that, they've also been upbeat, Richard, on potential COVID-19 vaccines.
Look, can I just jump in, Rico? The danger is that everybody thinks we're back to the races, that it's all off again. But what is happening is at the bottom, there is a hardened underbelly of unemployment and poverty that is being created. And the stock market is not reflective of that. Yeah, we'll be up several hundred points today. We may be up 2 or 3%. But underneath that, the way I look at it is this. You know, we talk about a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, or an L-shape. I think we are a tick in reverse. A tick looks like that. Well, I think what's happened is we've come down like this, and we're going to go back up again, maybe half, 3/4, a quarter of the way. We are not going to go back to where we are. Now, for the majority of people, it will look pretty good. But a hardened unemployment rate of between 7 and 10% by the end of the year is twice as high as we were, more than twice as high, almost triple what we were when we came into the crisis. Now, sorry, I interrupted you.
So what must the Trump administration do at this point to be able to improve that unemployment rate? Or, as we want to see, at least a U-shaped or a V-shaped recovery in the U.S. economy?
I think two things have to happen. First of all, there needs to be, obviously, the Fed needs to keep interest rates at zero. Negative rates, the Fed does not believe is the right answer. Secondly, the government policies. So you're going to need more accommodation for small businesses. Well, you saw that the Senate changed the rules on the PPP, the program that's been put in place for small businesses. So that gives them further relief going towards the end of the year. I think you're going to need more unemployment benefit. Excuse me. That is going to have to continue to last out until probably the end of the year. And you're going to need help for states. The individual states, excuse me, the individual states have borne the brunt of paying the bills for this. They are going to need some form of help from the federal government.
Surely, Americans need more monetary and fiscal stimulus to jumpstart the economy and create more jobs here, Richard. But let's talk about China. they remain a thorn on the side of the U.S., with President Trump banning flights from China to America amid tensions over the coronavirus and Hong Kong. What kind of dynamic does it have on the U.S. economy?
It has a very strong dynamic as the largest trading partner, etc. But I think with China, you have to remember that the tariffs that were in place are still in place. They haven't gone away. And the biggest risk for China, Rico, is that the president uses China as the whipping boy, if you like, for the election. Now, on the grounds of the election, of what happened with COVID-19, it is a very easy target. And if the president perceives that China is the way to get votes in America, it will be all bets off. Look, you've got a president who at the beginning says, Xi is my friend, Xi's doing well, China's being transparent. 3 months later is saying, I can't do business with him, I'm not taking his calls, I'm not speaking to him. The bromance of Xi and Trump has gone. And as long as the president perceives that there is electoral advantage, we are in such dangerous times because, normally about now, you and I would be talking about the quadrennial conventions, the Democrats and the Republicans, where they're meeting, what the policies are going to be, etc., etc. Now we're talking about how the conventions are going to be held, what's the policies, perhaps, and how they're going to fight the election. China is going to be the fighting ground, because there's no mileage for President Trump in being nice to China at the moment. None whatsoever.
So President Trump will continue to use China as an election tool until November, until he gets re-elected.
Oh, yes.
Richard, you are also an aviation correspondent, and you have covered the industry extensively for many, many years. What is the pulse right now in the airline sector as this pandemic impacts global carriers?
Very glad you asked about that, because this is fascinating. This is really fascinating, because we've started to get the numbers for June and July on how many flights. Now, if I give you an example, in May, United Airlines flew barely, 15% of its schedule. 80 or 85% didn't fly. In June and July, they're hoping to fly maybe 30%. That 70% is still not being flown. So if you look at the announcements from the airlines, and we can add into that Etihad, Emirates, Qatar, it's an interesting byproduct, by the way. So many airlines are flying so few routes that last month Qatar was the largest airline in the world. It flew 17% of global aviation. I think what you're going to see, if I got a press release from Lufthansa telling me what they're bringing back in June, July, August and September, I would expect, slowly but surely, what you're going to see is single flights put back where previously there were multiple frequencies. Slowly but surely. But we will not be back to anything like what we were before the end of the year.
So this is the new normal in the airline industry, Richard. I would love to talk to you for half an hour. There's so much to talk about, Richard. But from economics, we talked about travel. Let's now get your opinion on sports. You are from Liverpool, and the Premier League will start in about 2 weeks' time. Do you think that Liverpool will win its first Premier League title in 30 years?
You know, you could ask me that question in any one of 1,000 ways. And I refuse to take sides. And the reason, firstly, I was born and brought up in Liverpool.
Yes.
So I have loyalty divided between Liverpool and Everton. And secondly, I lived in Leeds in the 1970s, which was the heyday of Leeds United. So if I say I'm for Liverpool, I feel a traitor to Everton. If I go for Leeds, I realise I'm a bit of a no-hoper. So I tend to say, whichever of the three teams, Liverpool, Everton or Leeds, is leading, assuming any of them ever do, by the way, and Liverpool might have a better chance than most, then I'm for them. I'm for them, all the way.
All the way. And of course, Liverpool and Everton have a derby on June the 21st. And that will be, I'm sure, one match that you will be watching, Richard.
It's called... The Merseyside Derby is an event in Liverpool. It's about heart-fought rivalry played in good cheer nature.
Richard Quest, CNN International's business anchor, live from New York. Thank you for joining us on The Final Word.
Thank you.